Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear. Today I'm responding to an open tag that I've been seeing on YouTube. A couple of friends of mine have been responding to this as well. I believe it started with Slicey Dicey. Shout out to him. He's a great YouTube knife reviewer. I've been watching his videos for quite a while. He does a lot of really cool gear, and I respect his opinions a lot of the time. I really appreciate what he's done to contribute. Anywho, this open tag is the Knife Beauty Pageant. So I've seen quite a few people getting out their prettiest pieces in the collection. I went ahead and dug into my box, and I've got a few good looking knives to show you today. Frankly, I used to have quite a few prettier knives in my collection than I do now. I've been focusing a little bit more lately on utility and users, and so I've let go of some of those kind of just really pretty knives that have been in my collection, and I've been slowly replacing them with things that are more function than form. But nonetheless, I grabbed a few to show you today. This is probably the prettiest knife I own. This is the Spyderco Pageant, Peter Rosenti design. You've probably seen I changed the color on this clip. If you watch my videos, this came to me with this clip in purple anodization. I removed that. Did a how-to video on that process if you want to check it out. But this knife, in my opinion, just looks fantastic in this setup. With this clip, instead of the factory kind of spoon clip that comes on it, I think this just looks so sleek, so slim. It's simple in the right kind of ways. Being an integral, it's just hard to beat the aesthetic of one solid piece of titanium for the handle. It's got a fantastic blade finish on it. It's this kind of stone washed, but like mirrored first. It's like a mirrored stone washed, really high sheen that's then been roughed up, and it gives it this really cool effect. Great edge, perfect bevels. Everything on this knife is just beautiful. I really like this knife. It's actually made it into my pocket quite a bit recently. But yeah, that is the first entrant of the beauty pageant because the Pageant is undeniably gorgeous. Next, let's do another one that is new to me. This is the Protec Shaman. This is the Spyderco Shaman, but it is not normal. As you can see, it's rocking these diamond wood or rosewood scales, and it's got the CPM Rex 45 blade steel, which is a really cool blade steel. I've had great experiences with Rex 45 thus far. It's got a Lynch deep carry clip on it, and I believe this is like the satin finish one that they do, and it's probably the prettiest Lynch clip I've ever owned, and it suits this knife just perfectly. I got this knife with the factory clip and an additional deep carry clip to try, but this is the one that it was sent to me with, and it's going to stay with that. Although I will give you a little teaser that I do have some replacement scales on the way to try out for this guy. Not because I don't like these. These scales are really cool. If you watch my first impressions video, I'm pretty blown away with this knife, the way it comes out of the box. I really, really like it. But I've been itching to do a scale swap on something, and because I think this is going to be my forever Shaman, because I missed my S30V one so bad and finally got one in a cool steel, I figured it was a worthy recipient of a cool scale swap. So anywho, the satin finish on this is one of the prettiest satin finishes I've ever seen from Spyderco, period. It's got so much sheen to it. It's almost like it's hand rubbed, just gorgeous. And that Rex 45 just took that satin and ran with it. It does pick up fingerprint smudges pretty easily, as you can see. So if you have this knife, you do a lot of wiping. But yeah, it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous Spyderco. Next, let's do the only other Spyderco that I've got out. This is the Yojimbo 2, which is definitely not classically beautiful. It's a very different design from Spyderco. You can see that blade shape, the handle shape, everything about it is ultra unique. But that being said, this one is wearing some Putnam scales, and they're G10, just like the factory scales, but they've got this awesome milling on them. So they're contoured well around the edges, and they've got this texture that I think just suits the knife really, really well. I went ahead and I heat anodized this hardware, And I literally did that just on my stovetop. It's a super easy mod. I may do a video on heat anodizing hardware sometime soon. But yeah, I've got a lynch clip on here. And with these scales and the bronzed hardware, I think this knife is just really good looking. The Yojimbo 2 is a cool looking knife in my opinion. I think it's probably a little polarizing. A lot of people most likely either love it or hate it. But I'm in the love it camp. I think this knife looks really cool. I love that worn cliff blade and satin finish again. This one's really, really nice. And yeah, just a good looking knife in my opinion. Next, the Protec More Dax. This knife, obviously made by Protec, designed by Ferrum Forge. The More Dax is one of their designs, and it is distributed by Drop. CPM 20 CV blade steel. It's got this really nice, kind of super usable stone washing on it, which I appreciate. I think this stone wash looks really good, and it's also going to hide wear super well from what I can tell, and from my experiences thus far. This one is not the standard version. You'll see that these scales are the milled ones. I've seen a lot of people say that they prefer the standard just kind of flat scales to these because the way they feel in hand or whatever the reason may be. But I have found that I'm super glad I got these milled ones. I think it looks great, works great, and it just adds this cool factor to the knife. I don't have any other knives at the moment, nor have I owned many that have this much external milling for texture and for look, and I just think it's a really cool, really good looking knife. And this is one that I've found when I pull out of my pocket, tends to get some looks. People think it's cool. And so, yeah, I think that belongs in the beauty pageant. Next, this is a full titanium frame lock. This is the Summit Half Dome. The Summit Half Dome is made by Fox Knives. It's M390 with a great satin finish. It's a little dirty right now. I should clean that. Probably should have gone over these before I started rolling the camera, but yeah, this knife just has a great finish on it. I have found that it keeps this satin finish looking fantastic, even though I've used this knife quite a bit. But yeah, you can see some snail trails on the scales, but ultimately this knife, I think, is really pretty, really kind of like a gentleman's knife at the end of the day. It's a great fifth pocket carry knife. Fits really well in the fifth pocket of just about any of my pants. It's got all of these titanium accents, which are anodized blue. It's even got blue barrel spacers. And so the contrast between the kind of tumbled titanium and the anodized blue accents, I think it just looks really good. This is a knife that would make sense to pull out in kind of a fancy situation. If I was wearing slacks and I was somewhere with a lot of people and needed to pull out a knife to open something up, this would be one that I think is not going to scare a lot of people and kind of looks fitting in that application. But it's also, I've found, kind of a bruiser for outdoor use and heavier duty EDC tasks, especially for its size. But yeah, this is a great knife that I think just looks really good. It's Italian made, so that has to mean it's got some fanciness to it. Yeah, Summit knife, half dome. Next, this is a knife that, although it's got a little bit of wear on it, I think is one of the better looking knives in my collection. This is an old Benchmade. This model is called the Sentinel, and you can see it's titanium liners with these aluminum overlays. It's tipped down only, Elishewitz design. This one's semi-serrated. This was my dad's knife for a long time, and he ended up giving it to me because I always admired it, and he had moved on to other things to carry and was generous enough to send this one my way. But yeah, it's just got a really cool finish on the blade. It's satin, but it's got a higher sheen than just about any other satin I've seen. It's, I don't believe, hand rubbed or anything like that, but it's just got this great kind of polished finish to it. You can see that because it's been used quite a bit over time, that there's some natural wear, which I think, in my opinion at least, for a knife that's yours, almost makes it prettier to know you put that use and that wear on it. And yeah, the fully blue anodized titanium liners that you can see just present all throughout the knife are really cool. And yeah, this is just a pretty knife in my opinion. So even though it's kind of big. I think it could almost fit that gentleman's carry role a little bit, especially because it's an older, almost like vintage knife at this point. I think it's got that cool factor going for it as well. But there's the Benchmade Sentinel. Now this last one is, again, probably not really a classically beautiful knife, but I would argue it belongs in the beauty pageant, because this knife is styled. This knife is obviously the Microtech Bounty Hunter. This is the Ultratech version, and it is completely done over to resemble Boba Fett. It's got the Mandalorian insignia there. It's got his sort of armor color PVD coated over the whole thing with red accents and yellow touches. And this one has the Hellhound blade, which again adds to the style, definitely. I think this is the coolest production blade shape that Microtech does. They have a couple of really wild blade shapes that they do on like the Marfione or Marifone, I don't know how you say it, on his custom knives, but out of a production Microtech, I think that's the coolest blade you can get, especially with the apocalyptic finish on the grinds, with the satin flats, and it's got the little bit of coating inside the blood groove there. It's just an overload of details on this knife, and because I'm kind of a Star Wars geek, I have found myself getting things to go with it. So I got this Beskar little steel engraved card, if you will. So this is the way on that side. I got this Tam Fam Gram Baby Yoda patch, because why not? And then the other day I was going through my closet and I found this limited edition Star Wars coin from episode 3, back when I went to the opening when that knife came out, or when that movie, sorry, came out. So yeah, this is the kind of knife that is like a nerd's dream, and I'm in that camp. I love this knife. I think it's so cool, so different, and it certainly belongs in it. And obviously it's caused me to pick up some trinkets to go with it, which is, if you know me and my style of collecting knives, I'm not a trinkets kind of guy. I don't do beads, I don't do lanyards, I don't usually do coins, I don't do stuff like that. But this knife is just like a hobby flex, and so it's kind of snowballed a little bit for me. But yeah, those are my top prettiest knives. I think this was a really fun way to look through my collection and just kind of see what came out as I was looking for what I found prettiest. Let's see if I can get these all on here in a way that looks aesthetically pleasing. But yeah, this was a really fun challenge. I'm glad that it's going around right now, because I think it's fun to find different attributes of our collections. I think the knife hobby is a really fun thing, and some people are ultra focused on utility and things that are super usable. Other people are ultra focused on exotic materials, and other people are ultra focused on collecting a ton of a certain type of knife, getting every sprint run and every edition. And so it's fun for me to kind of look at my own collecting style and filter it in this way. And there's a lot of knives, obviously, that I didn't think I have because they're pretty. And frankly, most of these I didn't necessarily buy because they're pretty, but they're pretty enough to make the cut in what I would call my knife collection's beauty pageant. So I guess that's kind of my philosophy behind it. Yeah, this has been fun. These are my prettiest knives.